Introduction. Love. It's simple, isn't it? You love your family and your friends. They love you back. You find a partner who you love, and who loves you, too. And you don't even have to try, it just happens. All true, but if you're reading this book, you already know full well that it's much, much more complex. Love between people almost always has its complications because people are complicated. Love can be tried and tested and stretched to its limits. Sometimes we love the wrong person. We can love too much, or not enough. We can feel it but not know how to show it. We can think love is enough, when actually it isn't. We can struggle to find it or be unsure if we've found it or not. And sometimes we think it's still there, but we can feel it ebbing away and not know how to restore it to its full glory. Love is often involved in our highest highs and our deepest lows. And it's almost always linked to contentment, which frankly is what most of us ultimately want in life. And so we should. It's a lofty aim. Imagine yourself in old age for a moment. You're sitting in the sunshine next to your partner, who is also your best friend, confidant and lover, and you're surrounded by family and friends. Children are playing on the grass around you, and everywhere is the sound of laughter and happy voices. Yes, I know it sounds like the ending of the most unwatchable, sugary film ever. But deep down, wouldn't you like to feel you were heading for moments like that? It all comes down to forming strong and loving relationships that will stay strong all your life, well, starting from now at least, and accumulating people around you who make you happy and who enjoy your company. It all comes down to love. The four-letter word that has more poems, stories, and sermons written about it than any other. The supposedly basic and straightforward emotion that so many of us find a bit trickier than we feel it should be. We're told to love our neighbor, love our fellow man, that love makes the world go round, love conquers all you need is love. Yes, but how do you actually do it? How do you get it right and make it last and keep it fresh? It may be a basic human instinct, but it's not that easy. We keep messing it up. Relationships fail, friends let us down, family isn't there when we need them, or children blame us for everything that goes wrong in their lives. It's all very well saying that all you need is love, but it's not actually true. All you need is love plus an instruction manual for what to do with it once you've got it. Well, I've never tracked down an instruction manual, so I've had to do my best to assemble my own. To begin with, I was as lost as anyone. But as you'll know if you've read any of my other rules books, what I really do well in life is watch other people. I can't always seem to get everything right myself, but I can see what the people who do get it right are doing. So that's what I've done. I've studied all kinds of people in relationships with family and friends. It soon became clear that a few people are really good at love, but that most of us struggle. So what is it that the successful people do? Is there something they know and do that the rest of us could learn from? You bet there is. That's what's contained in this book. And here it is, if you do what the happiest people do, you'll become as happy as them. I've pulled together the top 100 rules as I've observed them in other people, plus a few I've learned for myself along the way. The people who follow these rules most closely are the ones who find a partner who makes them happy and manage to keep that relationship fresh and rewarding for life. They are the ones who have close, supportive families and whose children want to spend time with them. They are the ones with the closest and most rewarding friendships, and with people who are always there for them. They are the world's natural rules players. An instruction manual for love seems like an odd thing. It's not a sex manual. Do go and buy one of those, too, if you think that it'd be useful, because you won't find that kind of instruction here. This is a collection of behaviors to follow all your life to be better at loving people, and to be loved better in return. There are practical rules and emotional rules and tough rules and easy rules. I've just assembled everything I think will help you come to grips with love and how to use it. You know most of this stuff anyway, though you might not realize it. Much of it is common sense. As with all my books, these are reminders, not revelations. And that's as it should be. Love isn't so difficult that there are secrets you never knew. It's just that sometimes we lose the plot and need to remind ourselves of what's really important and what we should aim for to make all our relationships deep and lasting. I've divided the book into sections to make it easier to use. I've included sections on finding love, relationships, parting, not too many of those, because you don't want to dwell on it, family, and friendship. Some of the rules seem to overlap a bit, so I put them in whichever section seemed most appropriate. You'll have to forgive me if you disagree with my choice. And there were just a few rules left over at the end that seemed to belong equally in every section, so I've collected them up in the final section, Rules for Everyone. I've spent many years collecting these rules, but I bet there is more to learn. There always is, thank goodness. You may have come across guiding principles that I haven't included. If so, I'd love to hear from you so I can add them to my collection. You can email me at richard.templar@richardemplar.co.uk. With love, Richard Templar. Part I. Rules for Finding Love. It's all very well calling this book The Rules of Love, but what if you haven't yet found love? Or maybe you think you might have found it, but you're not sure. Is this new partner really the one? How can you tell, and how should you act while you're deciding? You really want to get it right this time. You don't want to do or say the wrong thing, or expect too much or too little. So while you're looking for the perfect partner, or getting to know the latest possibility, how should you behave and what should you be looking for? Part I. Rules for Finding Love should give you the help you need to recognize and keep Mr. or Mrs. right when you find them. Even if you're already settled in a relationship, you might want to take a look. It's possible that you'll be reminded of why you got together in the first place, and it might shed some light on how things are now. Plus, when it comes to helping others find love, you'll be in a better place to offer advice when others are heading down the wrong track. Rule 1. Be yourself. Isn't it so tempting to reinvent yourself when you meet somebody new who you really like? Try and be who you think they are looking for. You could become sophisticated, or maybe strong, silent, and mysterious. At the very least, you could stop embarrassing yourself by making jokes at inappropriate moments or being pathetic when dealing with problems. Actually, no, you couldn't. You might manage it for an evening or two, or even a month or two, but it's going to be tough keeping it up forever. And if you think this person is the one, the one, then you might be spending the next half-century or so with them. Just imagine 50 years of pretending to be sophisticated or suppressing your natural sense of humor. That's not going to happen, is it? And would you actually want a lifetime of lurking behind some sham personality you've created? Imagine how that would be, unable ever to let on that this wasn't really you at all, for fear of losing them. Suppose they find out in a few weeks or months or years, when you finally crack. They're not going to be very impressed. Let's be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to turn over the occasional new leaf or improve yourself a bit. We should all be doing that all the time, and not only in our love life. Sure, you can try to be a bit more organized, or less negative. Changing your behavior is all fine and good. This rule is about changing your basic personality. That will not work, and you'll tie yourself in knots trying to do it convincingly. So be you. Might as well get it all out in the open now if it's not who they're looking for. At least you won't get in too deep before they find out. And you know what? Maybe they don't actually like sophisticated. Perhaps strong silent types don't do it for them. Maybe they'll love your upfront sense of humor. Perhaps they want to be with someone who needs a bit of looking after. You see, if you fake it, you'll attract someone who belongs with a person that isn't you. And how will that help? Somewhere out there is someone who wants exactly the kind of person you are, complete with all the flaws and failings you come with. And I'll tell you something else, they won't even see them as flaws and failings. They'll see them as part of your unique charm. And they'll be right. Might as well get it all out in the open now. Rule 2. Get over it before you get on with it. We all get battered and bruised by life. That's inevitable. Some of us come off worse than others. Of course, it's the scars that give us character, so they're not all bad in the long run. In the short term, we may need to recover before we re-enter the fray. If your last relationship or two has left you a bit of an emotional wreck, it's better to repair the damage before you start looking for a new lover and partner. Otherwise you won't be able to show them the real you, and you won't be able to focus on them if you're still preoccupied with yourself. If you make a mistake with your new relationship, and it happens to us all, you could end up more bruised than when you started. Even if you did manage to find someone truly caring and loving, both of you could suffer because one of you wasn't ready yet to launch into a relationship. I have a friend who came out of one relationship an emotional wreck. Then she met a man who was lovely, kind, nurturing, and protective. Just what she thought she needed. Over the next couple of years he looked after her until she was a strong, independent woman again. And what happened? It completely killed their relationship. She wasn't the woman he'd fallen in love with anymore. Lots of men go for strong, independent women, but he wasn't one of them. He liked women who were fragile and needed looking after. And that's the danger. Even if you find the perfect partner, they're only ideal for who you are right now, and that's not who you'll be after you recover the person you really are underneath. I'm not saying these relationships can never work, but it's very, very rare. So do yourself a favor. Go away and hide somewhere while you lick your wounds. Enjoy your friends and your family, and wait until you've recovered before you start looking for a new partner. And when you do, try to pick someone whose scars are relatively well healed, too, because this works the other way as well. In this way you both see each other as you truly are, and start your relationship the way you want to continue it. Do yourself a favor. Go away and hide somewhere while you lick your wounds. Rule 3. You won't be happy with a partner until you can be happy on your own. I knew a woman who was always in a relationship. You know the kind. Maybe you're the same. The moment one relationship ended, another started. I asked her once why this was, and she told me that she didn't like being on her own, so she made sure it never happened. When I got to know her well, she was with a man who was perfectly decent but who just didn't give her the love she deserved. Why did she put up with it? I asked her. She patiently explained that she had no choice, because the alternative was being on her own, and she couldn't cope with that option. In the end, things got really bad and he left. She braced herself for the breakdown she knew would follow. I saw her a month or so later and asked how she was coping. She told me, "Fine, at the moment." I thought I would have fallen to pieces by now, but it's obviously taking longer to happen than I expected. I think it was 6 months before it finally dawned on her that she wasn't actually going to break down at all. 3 months later, she met a lovely guy who wanted to get serious and move in together, but she resisted. She was having too much fun being on her own. The point of this story is that she stayed in relationships that weren't good and put up with flack she didn't deserve, out of fear of being on her own. After she knew that she was happy on her own, she set her standards much higher and wouldn't put up with second best. She didn't have to. After all, what was the worst that could happen? Well, she could end up back on her own again, but that wasn't a problem anymore. So the moral of this story is that you need to learn to be happy and secure on your own. That way, you'll never stay in a bad situation for fear of being left alone. If it's not working out, you can simply leave. Far too many people stay in unhappy relationships because they're scared to be alone. Rules players learn to enjoy living alone so that when they do choose to throw in their lot with a new partner, it's for the right reasons. After you've mastered this, you'll only ever live with anyone else because you love them and they make you happy. Being alone is great, but being with them is even better. If that stops being the case, you're free to leave. Far too many people stay in unhappy relationships because they're scared to be alone. You'll know them when you meet them. To be quite honest, I'm not sure this is entirely true. Some people do know the instant they meet their future partner that this is the person they've been looking for all their life. But it doesn't work like that for everyone. The real rule one is that if you're not sure if this is the right one, don't take a gamble on it. If they are the right one, you will know it, even if it takes a bit of time. Point 2, in other words, if it's right, you will be sure either straight away, or a bit later, but you will know. If you're absolutely sure this is the right person the moment you lock eyes on them, you're very lucky. Unless it happens to you every time, in which case you need to stop kidding yourself. The important thing is not to commit yourself until you're certain. How many divorced people have you heard say, "Do you know, even on my wedding day I was wondering if I was doing the right thing"? Well, I can tell you. If you're still wondering about it on your wedding day, you are not doing the right thing. You are making a big mistake. Marriage and/or kids are tough enough when you are sure you are with the right person. It's lunacy to enter into it without being certain. If you aren't sure right at the beginning, that's normal. It may take weeks, months, or even years to be sure, especially if you're of a naturally doubtful persuasion. That's all fine. It's just that until you are sure, you shouldn't be making a permanent commitment. Your new partner, of course, may be sure sooner than you are. We're all different. But don't allow them to pressure you into making a decision before you're ready. It's understandable that they want you to commit yourself. You're a wonderful person. Why wouldn't they want to be with you? But no one will benefit if you make the wrong decision. If this is really the right person for you to spend your life with, you won't be thinking, "I don't know. Is it me? I'm just not sure if this is right." You'll be thinking, "Yes, yes, yes, let's get on with it." If you're not thinking that, you're not ready to commit yourself. If you aren't sure right at the beginning, that's normal. Rule 5. Choose someone who makes you laugh. I nearly put this rule first because I think it is the most important thing of all in a relationship. If you choose your partner for their looks, their status, even the rest of their personality, you could eventually regret it. Anyway, lots of those things can get lost along the way. Even personality traits can change. A confident person can be shattered by an emotional trauma. A patient person can become irritable and frustrated through illness or pain. A sense of humor will last you long after everything else has gone. When you're both sitting there in your rocking chairs, decades after retirement, and the kids have long since grown up, it may be all you have left. If it is, it will be enough. Laughter is worth its weight in gold. A sense of humor is a very personal thing, and some people just make us laugh more than others. When you find the person who really makes you laugh more than anyone else, marry them. That's my advice. You're almost guaranteed to admire them more, because anyone who makes you laugh will be hugely attractive even if they're not physically what you've been anticipating. Okay, I'm being a little extreme, but only slightly. Personally, I married the person who made me laugh more than anyone else, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. Maybe you'll prefer to go for the second or third funniest person you meet. Just don't compromise on the sense of humor, because it really is the top priority. You don't just want someone who makes you laugh generally, although that's essential. The best thing of all is to find someone who can make you laugh at yourself. That will get you through life more smoothly than anything. I have a friend whose wife died a few years ago, and he says that one of the things he misses most is being able to laugh at himself. He hadn't realized how much she helped him to do that or how essential it was to his happiness. He says he takes himself far too seriously these days and gets stressed about things that she would have gotten him to laugh off. So next time you meet someone with gorgeous legs, sexy eyes, or a cute smile, don't be seduced right away. See if they can first tickle you without touching. A sense of humor will last you long after everything else has gone. Rule 6. Being less than 100% attractive is a great filter if you're not in a relationship at the moment. It's tempting to blame your looks. Maybe you're overweight, going bald, getting bags under your eyes, too short, too tall, or have wonky teeth. Well, look around you. All over the world, people fatter, balder, crinklier, taller, shorter, or more in need of a trip to the dentist than you are happily settled in relationships with people who love them. And no, they didn't all start out looking perfect. I have a very attractive friend who used to be with this man who would nag her every time she started to put on weight. He'd insist she cut down on her eating or go to the gym. She felt he was only with her for her looks, and so he could show her off. Plenty of superficial men and women out there choose their partners for their looks and don't really love the person underneath. That's not your problem. Those extra pounds, that bald patch, the teeth, they're deterring all those shallow people who might have wanted you for your looks and then left you when you got older or put on weight. Now you don't have to worry about them. They'll leave you alone. Anyone worth having, on the other hand, will love you for yourself and won't mind the physical imperfections, if they even consider them imperfections. Would you turn someone perfect down just because they were a bit overweight, or wore glasses, or had a big nose? Of course you wouldn't. So why would anyone worthwhile do it to you? Look, go, and get your teeth fixed if you want to. Diet away the extra weight. Have a hair implant. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do about being too tall, although I have a tall friend who tells me she used to walk in the ditch when she met prospective boyfriends who were shorter than she was. My point is that you can make all the changes you like if it makes you happier, but it will not make you any more likely to find a good partner. If the perfect person is out there somewhere, they'll find you anyway. Be confident, and know that you are attractive to anyone deep enough to care about the whole of you, and not just what you'll look like on their arm. When that someone finds you, you'll feel sexy and gorgeous and completely forget about your flaws. About your flaws. Anyone worth having will love you for yourself. Rule 7. Don't keep making the same mistakes. Look, I know this one sounds blatantly obvious. but you'd be surprised how many clever people do it over and over. You'd think that if your ex was a nightmare from hell, you'd now steer 1,000,000 miles from anybody who reminded you of them. But subconsciously, you might be heading straight for a carbon copy. I know a guy who is inexplicably attracted to women who are chronically jealous and insecure. He tells me that some unconscious part of him can recognize them at 100 paces. He doesn't always realize it to begin with, but as soon as he starts to get involved, it turns out that he's found a woman who wants to know where he is all the time and who he's with. Apparently his mother was chronically insecure, too, but we won't go there. It doesn't have to be jealousy, it can be partners who put you down, who are unfaithful, who are overdependent, who are married, you name it. We all have certain patterns we keep following in relationships. Some of them are not a problem. If you always go for people who like animals, love being outdoors, or are 5 years older than you, that shouldn't matter. However, if you always go for a type that just doesn't work out, then you need to stop hitting your head against that particular brick wall. I know it's not easy. If this particular insecure / overdependent / overly independent / unfaithful / uncaring / married person is great on every other level, it can be tough deciding to end the relationship. Well, it's your choice. All I'm saying is that if you know that this type of person has never been good for you in the past, I can pretty much guarantee that they're not going to be for you in the future either. So stay if you want to, but don't say I didn't warn you. I imagine it is not just me, either most of your friends have warned you, too. Of course, changing deep-seated behavior is hard. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. The vital thing is to recognize the pattern and then to try to get to the bottom of how you got yourself stuck in this rut. In one sense, how you got there isn't relevant, but actually, like the guy with the jealous mother, it might help if you can see where your behavior comes from. You have to decide whether to commit your life to a string of failed relationships that everyone, including you, could have predicted and probably did. No. Doesn't appeal? In that case, you must resolve to avoid any relationship that fits the pattern, rather than trying to kid yourself every time that this one is different. For some people this is quite easy after they've identified the problem. For others, it is very difficult. Sometimes you have to do quite a lot of work building your own confidence to break the mold. However, if what you want in life is a happy, long-term relationship that really works and makes both of you feel great, there is no other way. However hard you find it to break the pattern, I promise it will be worth it. You have to decide whether to commit your life to a string of failed relationships that everyone, including you, could have predicted. Rule 8. Certain people are off limits. You know who they are. Would you have an affair with your sister's boyfriend? Your best friend's wife? One of your in-laws? How about anyone who is married? Would you embark on a brief fling with someone vulnerable who you knew was expecting this to be a serious relationship and could get very hurt? Where do you draw the line? We rules players all have enough integrity to know that certain people are off limits. Even if you have genuinely fallen head over heels in love with them, you just keep quiet and get over it even if it takes years. So where does that line get drawn? I think you know the answer to that one already. Deep down, you know whether you feel guilty, and have to make excuses to justify what you're doing. Their relationship was on the rocks anyway / he's not really my best friend / all's fair in love and war. Yes, deep down you know very well who is off limits. We don't all set the boundaries in exactly the same places, of course. If you're religious, you might consider anyone from a different religious background off limits. Maybe you believe that once a relationship has broken up it's always okay to get involved with one of the partners, or maybe you believe that if the other partner is a good friend, that's not acceptable. I don't know where you draw your line, but you do. If you're in doubt, ask yourself what you would think if someone you knew did the same thing. Suppose a friend of yours got involved with her sister's boyfriend. You might not say anything to her, but in private, would you disapprove? Would you think she was a bit out of order? If the answer is yes, you shouldn't do it yourself. If you were planning on a fling, I hope you will resist. If your feelings for this out-of-bounds person are really deep, this is going to be hard. It's going to be hard for a long time. I can tell you one thing, the further you get involved, the longer it takes to get over it. So don't start. You could be messing up more lives than your own. At the very least, you can hold your head up and know you have acted with integrity. In all probability, sooner or later someone else will come along who is not off limits, and who you can love openly and without guilt. That's got to be worth waiting for. Worth waiting for. I don't know where you draw your line, but you do. Rule 9. You can't change people. Suppose you're naturally tidy. I mean really neurotically tidy. You can't stand to leave cleaning for later and always put away everything immediately after use. Imagine you end up with a partner who likes to spread their possessions about and actually only feels comfortable with clutter. Would you become a messy person to keep them happy? If you're not actually tidy, you might be wondering what the problem would be, but if you're one of nature's tidy people, you are probably thinking that it would be a struggle and an unreasonable request. You would be right. The fact is that you can't ask people to change, and even if they wanted to, they couldn't do it. Sure, they can modify their behavior, but they can't change their personality. You might persuade your messy partner to hang up the bathroom towel instead of leaving it on the floor, but I bet they'll hang it up all crooked and it will still drive you mad. You can't turn them into a tidy person, only a messy one who hangs up the towel. In the meantime, the kitchen will be a mess and the floor of the car will be disgusting, in your view, but not theirs. It's not just a question of being messy or tidy. You can't stop someone from being irresponsible, football obsessed, a workaholic, shy, or easily stressed. So, if you can't live with these characteristics, don't get involved with someone who has them. Whatever you do, don't embark on a relationship with someone thinking, I can't cope with this bit of their personality, but that's okay, I'll change it. You won't. You'll just make both of you miserable. How would you feel if your partner said, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but I'm going to customize you into the person I actually want, because you're not quite right yet? Frankly, if this person isn't who you want to be with, leave them alone for someone who will really appreciate them, while you go and find someone who you can actually love as they are. I know no one is exactly perfect. Everyone can be irritating from time to time in a relationship, including you, but you're looking for someone whose irritating habits are worth putting up with, not for someone who you can mold to your personal requirements. Be warned that this also applies to the big stuff that could make you very unhappy. If you meet someone who is perfect apart from being alcoholic, or physically abusive, or serially unfaithful, you won't change that either. Please. Physically abusive, or serially unfaithful, you won't change that either. Please don't kid yourself. They might keep the behavior in check for the first few months or years, but sooner or later, when the euphoria wears off and the stress of normal life returns, they will go back to their old ways. Everyone can be irritating from time to time in a relationship, including you. Rule 10. Relationships aren't about sex. Great sex is a wonderful thing. And if there isn't any sexual attraction, even at the beginning, the relationship doesn't stand much of a chance. But the best relationships will last a lifetime, and your libido may not. If the relationship is built on sex alone, you'll be in trouble after you have to deal with children, money worries, elderly parents, career problems, and everything else life will throw at you sooner or later. A good romp in the bedroom just isn't the solution to most of those issues. This rule belongs in this section because it's so important to remember when you're looking for love. The danger is that you'll mistake lust for love, that you'll think because the sex is great that the relationship must be, too. You know all those people who get married after only a few weeks? A few of them get it right, but most of them are literally seduced by the physical attraction and can't see clearly whether there's the basis for a successful lifelong relationship. Often there isn't. I have a friend who is always looking for the perfect sexual partner. It's not that he has any particularly bizarre requirements, as far as I'm aware. It's just that sex is his top priority in choosing a partner. Consequently, he has a great sex life, but he can't understand why he's never had a successful long-term relationship. I'm not suggesting that sex doesn't come into it, but it's not what relationships are about, and he's making it difficult for himself by giving priority to something that isn't that crucial to the kind of relationship he actually craves. If you're free and single, it's so easy to convince yourself that a strong sexual attraction or a great sex life is actually more than that. It's easy to kid yourself that there is much more to the relationship. I'm sure there is more if you say so, but is there enough more? Is there enough to get you both through the bad times as well as the good times? To get you through illness and worry and the tragedies that all of us encounter sometime in our lives? If you're not sure, then by all means go on enjoying the physical appeal of the relationship. but don't commit yourself for life until the lust wears off and you can see clearly what's left. The danger is that you'll mistake lust for love. Rule 11. You should know someone through all the seasons before you make any major decision. Sex isn't the only reason not to rush to conclusions. We're all quite cautious about how much of ourselves we reveal to other people. In a new relationship, we're going to do our best to present the most positive things to our new partner. You do it, I do it, everyone does it. It takes time to get to know someone well, and for them to feel sufficiently confident in you to drop their guard. Of course, if this person is really as wonderful as you hope, the things that get revealed later on won't be a problem. I have a friend whose partner is prone to depression. It was a few months before he found the courage to tell her, given that he wasn't going through a depressed phase when they met. He is a lovely, lovely man, and she was more than happy to take this on and help him cope with it. Someone else might have reacted differently if she was depressive herself. For example, it might have been a much bigger problem. The point is that you're not going to find out for a good while if your new partner is selfish, controlling, rude to your friends, hates most of the things you love, is unsympathetic to your hang-ups, or worse still is alcoholic, say, or abusive, which, as we saw in Rule 9, isn't going to change. Some of these things are worth putting up with and some aren't, but you can't make that decision until you know what you're dealing with. A year is a perfectly reasonable length of time to ask someone to wait before deciding to live together, get married, have kids, emigrate, or to make any other big decisions. If your wonderful new partner is pressuring you after only a few months, just tell them that this is your rule. Know someone through all the seasons before making any major decisions. I know some people get frustrated with partners who still won't make a commitment after 3 or 4 years, but that's different. Asking for 12 months of breathing space is entirely reasonably and sensible, and you have every right to gently insist on it. If this is really the right person to be with, waiting 12 months to decide your future will be well worth it. After all, what's a year compared to a lifetime? What's the rush? Why not relax and have fun before all that real-life stuff starts piling on top of you? If this is really the right person to be with, waiting 12 months will be well worth it. Rule 12. Don't stay with someone who doesn't care. Some people are great at being partners and some just aren't. After they've known you through all the seasons, they settle down to taking you for granted. They haven't got time for your problems if they've even noticed that you're not your usual happy self. They don't bring you flowers 3 anymore, suggest a romantic evening out, or spoil you on your birthday. In short, they just don't care enough. Often the people who do this are just downright self-centered. They stop noticing you after they think the relationship is secure and go back to thinking about themselves. They'll probably still expect you to look out for them, and listen while they talk through their problems or offload the stress of the day, but they're reluctant to reciprocate. Sadly, these people aren't likely to change, at least not for you. Maybe, one day, they'll be dumped by by someone really special and it will wake them up. I hope so. It may have to be you that dumps them. The fact is that if they don't care enough, they won't make you feel special. That's not right or fair. You want a partner who makes you feel special because you are, and they want you to know it, not one who has learned how to go through the motions to stop you from leaving, and that's what it comes down to. If your partner truly cares about you, they'll make it very clear. If, deep down, they're putting themselves first and taking you for granted, it's not going to change. You deserve better than that. Go and find yourself someone who truly wants to make you happy. If your partner doesn't care about you now, at the start of the relationship, things will go downhill if you stay together. Don't kid yourself that moving in together or getting married or whatever is going to make it all better, because I can tell you now that it will make it all worse. You need to resolve this problem before you consider making a big commitment to them, and good luck to you. If you decide to give them a last chance, give it a very long time to make sure they really have changed before you commit yourself. Somewhere out there is someone who will care for you properly, in every sense. Don't throw yourself away on someone who won't. It will damage your confidence and your self-esteem over the years, as well as making you unhappy. Do yourself a favor and wait for someone better to come along. You want a partner who makes you feel special because you are. Rule 13. If you can't trust them, you haven't got a relationship. Trust is an absolute essential between partners. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about being faithful, sticking to promises, keeping spending within what you can afford, or anything else. If you can't trust your partner, you'll never be happy. Of course, there are lots of reasons why you can't trust someone. Maybe they have a track record of being untrustworthy. Maybe you just have hunches. Maybe they didn't tell the truth about some small things and you wonder what else they weren't entirely honest about. Maybe they are just a bit shifty. Although in that case, I'm not sure why you're with them at all, and might I respectfully suggest you move on pronto. It doesn't matter. You just have to be able to trust them. Then again, maybe it's you. Maybe you've been lied to in the past and you find it impossible to trust people. Well then, I'm afraid you still don't have a relationship, and you never will have until you learn to trust. I know it's tough, especially if your suspicions have been justified in the past, but that's why you deserve a good relationship now. You won't get it unless you can deal with the trust thing. How must it feel for your partner? They're behaving impeccably, they've done nothing wrong, they're being as honest as they can be, and still you mistrust them. That can bring down a relationship. However sympathetic they are to your trust issues, to use an awful psychobabble expression for, in the end it will grind them down and make them feel you just don't love them. However justified you were in the past, it isn't fair to your new partner to make them pay for someone else's mistakes. Deep down, I think you know whether it's you or them that's causing your mistrust, and you need to be honest with yourself about the root of the problem. So, if your partner is either doing the dirty, or so secretive you can't tell whether they are or not, have it out with them, and if you can't get them to be more honest, get out while you can. If it's you that's behind the problem, find some way to sort it out. I've seen people throw away good relationships and cause themselves great damage by failing to tackle their own inability to trust. If you're still looking for your Mr. or Mrs. Right, sort this out quick before you. You're still looking for your Mr. or Mrs. Right, sort this out quick before you meet them. I wouldn't want you to blow the whole thing just because someone in your past was stupid enough to betray you. Maybe you've been lied to in the past and you find it impossible to trust people. Rule 14. Be honest. While you still have the chance, we all have things in our life that we're not especially proud of, or that we don't enjoy remembering. Maybe we're even ashamed of what we've done or who we've been. If your life was a book, you'd skip that chapter. It's not surprising that when you meet someone new, you don't immediately want to confess all the bits of your past that you'd rather forget. That's fine, you don't need to yet. But if you're going to stay with this person, sooner or later they're going to need to know about that dodgy period where you got into a bit of trouble with the police, about an abortion, the cross-dressing, or the fact that your father's an alcoholic. Obviously you can sweep the little things under the carpet. That time you cheated on your math test when you were 8, for example, or the fact that you went to see the Spice Girls live in concert 10 times. But it's not the little things that are bothering you, is it? It's the big stuff you don't want them to know. But they do have to know it. It's up to you whether you tell them everything on the first date, or whether you save it until you've known them for months. Sooner or later, it's going to have to come out. If they love you enough, it will be okay. If they don't love you enough, well, this is as good a way as any to find out. If you wait too long to tell them, they will rightly be upset and hurt that you've been keeping it from them. So the right time to tell them is the point when finding out in the future would be worse than finding out now. Between now and when you finally tell them, the crucial thing is not to lie to them. If you're keeping quiet about the fact that your dad is an alcoholic, don't pretend he's not alive. If you mislead them now, they won't be able to trust you when they find out you lied to them. Staying away from those tricky subjects is probably a smart move at the very beginning of a relationship. After all, if you don't stay together, at least they won't be taking all your secrets with them when you part. So steer clear of a subject until you're ready to tell them, but make sure every step of the way that you are not being dishonest. Otherwise, that's going to be a really deep hole to dig yourself out of. The crucial thing is not to lie. Rule 15. Don't play games. It's so tempting sometimes. You think, I'll just sit tight and see how long it takes him to call. Or I'll tell her I'm really upset about my mom's operation, just to see if she agrees to come and meet my mom after all. Look, if you want to speak to him, just call him. If you want her to meet your mom, just ask her. Game playing is dangerous territory to get into, and it can easily backfire. The only way to begin a relationship is the way you want it to be long term, and if you don't want to be playing games for years, Don't start. Remember that if it's okay for you to play games, it's okay for them, too. Is that what you want? Games, however innocent and well-meaning you may convince yourself they are a form of manipulation. We don't manipulate people we love, we just let them know honestly how we feel and what's important to us. Manipulating people is patronizing, controlling, and altogether unacceptable. Generally speaking, we tend to play games, or at least be tempted to, because our partner is not behaving as we want. Sometimes it's a test. I'll see how long it takes her to remember it's my birthday, or more seriously, I won't let him know I'm here, and I'll see if he tries to hit on any other women. No. Stop it. It's no good. Please just tell her it's your birthday if you want to be sure she remembers. If you really think he's going to start flirting, go back and reread Rule 13. You have to trust them. If you get caught playing these kind of games, you'll be in big trouble, and rightly so. How would you like it if they did it to you? You will get caught, you know, sooner or later. Even if they can't prove it, they'll just know you weren't being straight with them. That takes us back to the trust thing again. They have to be able to trust you, and game playing will have the opposite effect. I have a friend who spent years playing it cool and playing games with various men in her life. The one she married was the one it never occurred to her to play games with. It simply wasn't necessary because the whole thing was right from the start. If you'll get hurt when your partner forgets your birthday, just give them fair warning a few days ahead, and see what they do. I know you don't want to be with someone who doesn't care, but some people are just plain forgetful, so you have to give them a fighting chance. Equally, your partner might be happy to have to give them a fighting chance. Equally, your partner might be happy to meet your parents if you explain how important it is to you and why. So don't manipulate them. Just sit them down and explain that even though they don't feel ready yet, here's why you'd like them to reconsider. It's so much more grown up, in the right way, and will get you started on the right foot for the rest of the relationship. The only way to begin a relationship is as you want it to continue. Rule 16. Don't paint new partners with old brushes. Most of us have a past of some kind. Even very early on, the most innocent of teenage romances leaves us with some kind of history. It's easy to let that get in the way of the next romance. We are programmed to assume that the future will work pretty much the same as the past, unless there's a good reason to think otherwise. If your hair has always looked nicer brushed in the past, it's wise to brush it again today if you want to look good. If you liked bananas the last time you ate one, you'll probably like the next one. If you've always been good with numbers, a job that calls for good math skills shouldn't be too much of a challenge. If your last partner cheated on you, your next partner will. Whoa. Hold it. Rewind. Scrap that last example. Yes, lots of things in life follow the same basic principle every time, but that doesn't apply to partners. All those other examples were things about you, and you are still the same person. Each partner is new, It may well be the case that if your last partner cheated on you, they'll probably cheat on their next partner, too. But that's not your problem anymore. However, this new partner comes with a clean sheet, and there's nothing to say they resemble your last partner at all. In fact, if you really thought they did, what are you doing with them? Of course, cheating is just one fairly extreme example. I've known people who make all sorts of assumptions based purely on what their last partner did. I know one woman who assumed her partner was upset with her if he didn't make her a cup of tea when he came home, just because her last partner would have been upset. Her new partner was planning to change his clothes, wash his face, and have a cup of coffee. I know someone else who got upset if his wife had her back to him when he got into bed on the grounds that it must mean don't touch. In fact, she was just more comfortable on her left side. As with so many rules, you need to reverse the situation and think how you'd feel if your partner judged you by the standards of some ex you probably never even met. It is frustrating for some innocent gesture or remark to cause an argument simply because it would have meant something else in another relationship. So whether it's big stuff or little signals, whether it's money or sex or moodiness or work or secrets or lies or romance or anything else, you could create all sorts of problems that just aren't there if you start painting this partner with the same brush as the last one. Lots of things in life follow the same basic principle every time, but that doesn't apply to partners. Rule 17. Make sure you both have the same shared goals. There's this couple I know. They fell in love, got married, and had kids. They lived in London, and he had a job that entailed quite a lot of travel to Cornwall 3 or 4 hours away. After a few years, the requirements of the job changed, and he had to spend a lot more time in Cornwall. He told his wife it was probably time they moved down there permanently. As it turns out, this was always his long-term plan, but he hadn't thought to discuss it with her earlier. She'd never mentioned to him that she couldn't contemplate moving out of London. Uh-oh, stalemate. The moral here is don't wait until you're married with kids to have these conversations. I guess it would be wise to avoid scaring your new potential lover by interrogating them on the first date about their life plan. Before you make any serious commitment to each other, you need to hammer this stuff out. Of course, things can change. Someone who says at the age of 20 that they definitely want to focus everything lifestyle, location, and so on their career may feel differently when they're 30. If you don't discuss these things with your partner when things start getting serious, you can end up in a real mess, like the couple I mentioned. The biggest issues are probably children and where to live. Then there are other things too. Perhaps one of you has always wanted to retire early and travel while the other is phobic about flying and hates to be away from home for more than a week at a time. I'm not saying you should hold your partner to a whole life plan. You can't always know how you'll feel, and people are allowed to change their minds. I have a friend who made it clear to his new girlfriend from day one that he never ever wanted children. She agreed to this, with huge sadness because she really wanted a family. However, some years later they accidentally got pregnant. They lost the baby, and it devastated them both. They went on to have 2 kids out of choice, and he's now a devoted dad. Be warned, it doesn't always work out. I have another friend who decided at the age of 25 with her partner that neither of them wanted children. 10 years later she felt strongly that she really did want children. Her husband, however, insisted that they'd agreed to remain childless and wouldn't even discuss it. Insisted that they'd agreed to remain childless and wouldn't even discuss it. That was one of the many reasons they finally split up, but not until she was in her early 40s, and it was too late for her to become a mother. Just make sure that you don't commit yourself to a lifelong relationship with someone until you have a general idea about their views on lifestyle, kids, and how to bring them up, where to live, how much to travel, and all those other things that can seem distant now but could make or break your relationship in the long term. Be prepared for the fact that though one of you may change your mind, one may not. Before you make any serious commitment, you need to hammer this stuff out. Rule 18. You can't make someone love you. It's possible this is one of the hardest things to accept when it comes to matters of the heart. You find the person you've been looking for all your life. Trouble is they haven't realized it. Maybe you met recently and you're head over heels, but they don't seem very interested. You're hanging on desperately, sure that they will soon realize you are made for each other. Maybe you've actually been together as a couple for years. They are very fond of you, after all, and being with you is easy, but deep down you know they don't really love you. Sooner or later they will tell you that things just aren't working out, but you don't want to hear it. You try to persuade them to give you another chance. Maybe you try to change and become the person they really want. It's all a bit humiliating really, but you don't see it like that. You think it's worth it to win their love. Funny thing is, it never works. Love just isn't like that. You can jump through all the hoops you like, beat yourself up for not being able to match up to their standard, as you see it, damage your confidence and your self-esteem in the process, and still they won't love you. They can't. Maybe they're gentle and apologetic about it, and maybe they're unkind or even brutal. The same scenario is played out in relationships the world over where only one of the two is actually in love. Think through some of the couples you know, and I bet you can think of examples where this is true. I know people who have been through this, and have taken months or years to realize there's no hope. Since then, they've found romance with someone who reciprocates their love. The interesting thing is that everyone I know who has been through this says the same thing. Thank goodness that other relationship finally ended because this is so much better. See, however wonderful the object of your affection is, if they don't love you back, the relationship will never be good. Even supposing they could love you, if it requires you to keep jumping through all those hoops to hang on to them, it's just not worth it. You need and deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not for who you're pretending to be or trying to be. So as soon as you realize you're with someone who doesn't love you, you need to be brave and end the relationship before they do. You'll feel bad about losing them, but great for holding on to your pride, and one day you'll look back and realize how courageous you were and what a right decision it was. Maybe you try to change, to become the person they really want. Rule 19. Be cruel to be kind. Rule 18 was about what to do when the person you love can't love you back. Now we're turning the tables. Suppose you just can't love the person you're with? Sure, you like them, you enjoy their company, they make you laugh, or they listen when you're upset, or they share your interests. You wouldn't be with them if there weren't a lot to like. But, you know you'll never love them the way they love you. You feel bad, of course you're a caring person. You wish you could love them, and you don't want to hurt them. Maybe you'd be happy to keep hanging out with them anyway. I mean, if there's no one else on the scene to go out with, and you want to go to the same places, and maybe the sex is good, and anyway you'd miss their family and their friends. Yes, it would be easier to stay with them for now. That's not the answer. Not if you're a rules player. The longer you stay with this person, the more hoops they'll have to jump through, trying to make you love them, the more they'll be hurt when you finally go, and you will go in the end, and the more time they'll waste with the wrong person, you. No. You've got to be cruel to be kind and end the thing now. I know it's tough. If you care about this person, you'll feel dreadful hurting them, but remind yourself it would hurt more if you left after a longer time. They deserve to be free to find someone who can love them in the way you can't. I'll tell you something else. If you don't really love this person, sooner or later you'll find someone you do fall head over heels in love with. Just suppose that person walks into your life tomorrow or next week. Then, what will you do? There's no satisfactory answer to that. You could get involved and really hurt your current partner. You could be hugely honorable and refuse to get involved, but that would be difficult and potentially devastating for both you and your new mystery lover. The only solution that actually works is for you to be free and single already when your new love interest arrives on the scene. For that to happen, you need to disentangle yourself from your current partner now. See, the kindest thing for everyone is for you to be briefly cruel, but by doing so to leave everyone free to get on with their lives and make much more of them than they possibly can as things are right now. Your partner may not like or appreciate it at the moment, but one day, if they have any sense, they'll appreciate it at the moment, but one day, if they have any sense, they'll look back and privately thank you for it. Leave everyone free to get on with their lives.